Palestinians are protesting against what they call racism and discrimination in Israeli society.
We are all Jewish and this is our country. We should all be equal.
The theory behind the DNA testing is that we all share a common ancestor who lived in Africa. Our ancestors began migrating to the Middle East, India, Asia, Northern Europe. With each move, mutations occurred in the DNA, each mutation associated with a place and time in history. And that's the crucial link scientists need to be able to tell where you came from.
And your ancestors have a lineage we call J. Okay, it's very common throughout the Middle East, also found in North Africa. It's also found in some European populations, particularly people who have Eastern European Jewish ancestry. Particularly people who have Eastern European Jewish ancestry.
We didn't travel too far.
Well, you did. But you illustrate exactly why we're doing this project. So again, you originated in Africa just like everybody else, and your ancestors stayed mostly within Africa, probably moved up into northeastern Africa, and they had a marker which occurred called YAP. Again, this is one of those rare changes that occurs from time to time, distinguishes your clan, your lineage. You're a member of haplogroup E, we call it. Some of the members of haplogroup E moved up into the Middle East. Yours turned towards Central and Western Africa. And today, most people who are African American are actually members of haplogroup E, but they're a member of a subset or a subclan within E, which you're not a member of. And today, most people who are African American are actually members of haplogroup E, but they're a member of a subset or a subclan within E, which you're not a member of.
Another impactful thing was to really look at the people of Zimbabwe and get a feeling that, oh, this is where we're from. But as African Americans, we hit a wall as to where we come from on two different occasions. Some of the Lemba leaders were like, you look Lemba. And I'm like, you know, I don't know about that. And I remember my mom told me before we left that she took 2 different DNA tests and that we have the coenine gene. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever. I didn't even know what it meant. I was like, okay, cool. I remember Prophetess Majoro speaking, and it was the weirdest thing. She said, we can trace our roots all the way back to the line of Aaron. We had the coenine gene. I was like, shut up. And I had never told anyone what my mom told me. But it was true, and I was like, I was freaked out. And I remember when Lauren came, I was like, you will not believe this, because I could see Lemba cooks that looked like family members. Like, one Lemba cook looked just like my oldest sister, and I'm like, get out. And I'm like, no. So it was very impactful to really see, like, I wasn't going to Zimbabwe expecting to look at my roots or whatever, but to see that happen, it was so emotional and stirring, and it was hard to really, like, get through the trip without crying. And often I would talk to Lauren, she's like, you should be freaked out. This is crazy. This is so awesome. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. But that was my trip to Zimbabwe, and it was, I love the people, I love the country.
What we were saying was that there's a non-African contribution to the gene pool of the Lemba, which is not evident in the peoples amongst whom they live in that part of the world.
You mentioned non-African influences. If someone didn't have genetic data or the testing available, how could you determine if one group is Jewish or not?
I distrust relying on morphological features to categorize populations.
So someone couldn't say, oh, he looks Jewish, she looks Jewish, he's not Jewish, she's not Jewish. That wouldn't have any bearing on the issue of Semitic origin.
I don't think so. The Lemba.
Dr. Jenkins believes DNA always trumps appearances, and the Lemba's claim to Jewish ancestry may indeed have some genetic support. Not only is their DNA very different from their neighbors, but according to his colleague, Dr. Himla Sudyal, it may have a non-African, even Jewish connection.
I'm Josh.
Yes, this is the very interesting thing, that the South African Lemba harbor a particular Y chromosome pattern or lineage that's common in people who identify as the Kohanim or the Jewish priests.
the Kohen modal haplotype has been found among the priestly caste of the Lemba.
The observation that the Cohen pattern was commonest in that one particular group is something that begs exploration.
This link supports the Lemba's oral history and the archaeological clues we've seen in the places they say they lived. Himmler tells me that the presence of the Kohen modal haplotype can't tell us anything about the Lemba's religion. Yet just as remarkably, it can tell us where their ancestors came from, and it's not in Africa.
There is this interesting genetic information showing us that some of the original founders did come from other parts of the world, other than Africa. From our data, I would put my money on saying it's the Middle East.
Himmler is convinced that Lemba ancestors did indeed come from the Middle East.
So the genetic testing actually proved to the doubters what you and your forefathers have been saying for generations. That must be exciting news.
It is.
I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of the Lemba. I knew very little about the people. But having spent time making the journey from Jerusalem down through Zimbabwe, having spent time here at this festival, seeing what your people are all about, I can only sum it up in one word, and that's shalom.
Shalom.
The Lemba tribe, very possibly one of the lost scattered tribes of Israel, are located in remote communities in the heart of Zimbabwe. It is estimated that there may be as many as 400,000 of these ancient descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Oral tradition claims that their ancestors fled the Holy Land over 2,500 years ago. We know from recent DNA testing that many are Kohanim, or descendants of Aaron, the priest, the brother of Moses. They observe many biblical Jewish customs, like the dietary laws, the blowing of shofars, and circumcision.